Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Fantastic. I'm excited to have you here at the Product Availability Podcast. So, yeah, today we're going to talk about on-shelf availability. But before we get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm sure you probably already know all this, but for your audience, maybe for that perspective, my name is Mike Grain. I am married to my best friend of 46 years, Ruthie. We have a couple of kids. My youngest is a asset protection market manager for Walmart in the Denver area. And Jorge, I don't know if you know this, and I'm not trying to bring your audience down, but we lost our daughter about 5 years ago from a heart attack. So every time somebody says, "Tell me about yourself," I always say I have two kids, but unfortunately one of them's no longer here in heaven. So she's in heaven looking down on us. So um, in terms of the fun stuff that I do before we get into work stuff, I absolutely love motorcycling. I've had a motorcycle for 35 years, and my wife and I go riding around in that. I am an avid woodworker. So I've got a 1,000 square foot shop that I do a lot of woodworking and building furniture for mostly from my family, but sometimes for a few friends. Never doing it as a hobby. It's just a hobby. It's not a business at all. And then lastly, I tell you is we spend a lot of our time, our free time, doing RVing. So we have a big diesel pusher RV, and we pull my truck around to various both business meetings as well as personal vacation spots, and we just love to see the United States. So that's me in a nutshell from a work standpoint. I've been in the industry for about 45 years now. Spent 25 years with Procter and Gamble. 20 of those years were with working in Northwest Arkansas with Walmart. I don't know if you know the story, but P&G and Walmart had a sort of a rough relationship back in the late 80s. And so Mr. Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, basically said, "Why don't you move some folks down here so we can work closer together?" I'm not sure if he wanted to work closer together or just keep his eye on us. But either way, we came down and worked it, and incredible life-changing event, being able to be part of that first customer team. Jorge, I don't even know if you know this, but we were the first team down here, and now there's 1,300 supplier teams that are down in Northwest Arkansas calling on Walmart. So I did that for 25 years, and then on a Friday, I retired from P&G and joined Walmart on a Monday. Had enough hours to do years to do that, and I ran their on-shelf availability. And their on-shelf availability included algorithms, it included shelf scanning robots, it included RFID, and we've been working on that with at Walmart for about 15 years, I guess, total. And then in 2019, I decided, hey, I've worked with great big P&G and great big Walmart. I want to do something with other retailers and suppliers, and so I sort of started my own thing, and I'm now a company of one. So I have a company called Collaboration LLC, and I still focus on on-shelf availability and RFID and robots and algorithms and all stuff so the customer isn't disappointed. So that is me in a nutshell of what I've been doing for 45 years.
That is awesome. As I always tell you, I'm grateful what you have done for the industry and what you continue to do because you're one of the few that have done a ton, but you're also teaching kind of some of the younger generations around on-shelf availability and your lessons learned. I have read a few books where that speak about your relationship between Walmart and Procter and Gamble. You guys set the foundation of collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment. So I'm a big fan of what you guys have done. And on a personal level, I know you when I first met you, you were at your RV in Orlando with your wife. So you're one of the few that combines family with work, which is amazing. And I am very similar as well. My wife is on the CPG world, and we love it. We are so obsessed to ensure the products are on shelf to satisfy the consumer. So why don't we start there? On shelf availability, is it the same than in stock?
Not even close. Absolutely not even close. I've got a quote that I think you'll find. So let's start this premise off by something. Again, I told you I had the absolute privilege to work with Sam Walton, and he had a quote that he literally shared with me, and I wrote it down. But he's that subsequently shared it with everybody, and it's this: There is only one boss, the customer, and they can fire everybody in the company from the chairman on down simply by spending their money somewhere else. Okay. And before we talk about on-shelf availability, why is this important? Because at the end of the day, this little piece of technology here is a game changer. It puts the power in the consumer or customer's hand to get the products they want regardless of the retailer. I'm not loyal to Walmart. I'm not loyal to Target. I'm not loyal to Best Buy. I'm not loyal to any of the retailers. I'm looking for a specific item. And if you don't have it, I'll get it from somebody else. Okay? And so by definition, disappointing the customer when you go in and you don't find what you're looking for and you pull out your phone and order it from somebody else or leave the store and go to another retailer, you're firing the world's biggest company. Now, to answer your question, on-shelf availability is really a clear indication of two things. Number one, people say, in stock all the time. And what in stock is typically a calculation of how much do I have on hand? I think this is what I think I have on hand, and how much do I expect to sell? What's my sales forecast? So if I think I have 10 and I think I'll sell 5, technically I'm in stock. The problem becomes it doesn't tell you where it is. If it's sitting in the back room somewhere, or it's on a trailer and hasn't been unloaded yet, you may be in stock, meaning it's in the building, but it's not on the shelf for a customer. At the end of the day, that customer is not going to go look in your trailer. They're going to go to the shelf and it's either there or it's not there. Okay. And so that to me is the truest definition. And I actually pulled an example the other day. This was a classic one. I needed a printer cartridge for my printer. I called this retailer. I won't tell you who it is, but I called this retailer. Yes, we have 6 of them in the store. I went to the store and this is what I saw. They have none. I said, well, they must have them somewhere else. And I said, where is this? Well, it says we have 6, but they're not here. Let me go check. And I hate these words. Let me go check in the back room, which basically means I'll see you in about 3 days, right? You'll never come back. I got out my phone. I used that customer's Wi-Fi and I ordered it because I didn't need it right away. I ordered it from Amazon and they delivered it 2 days later. Thank you very much. I'm never going back to this retailer to buy printer cartridges. They lost me forever. So that's an example where they may have had it in the building. It was in stock, but it's not on the shelf. So from a customer perspective, you disappointed me and I'm going to spend my money somewhere else. Not only am I going to spend my money somewhere else, I'm going to, as Sam Walton said, I'm going to fire you.
That's that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think here you're just reflecting not only the fact that there was a lost sale at that point in time, but also a lost customer, which means a lost sale for forever.
Right.
So tell us why on-shelf availability or measuring on-shelf ability has been difficult over time. What's new today? What's your take? Why do you think it's an execution problem? If you think it's an execution problem. So tell us a little bit about your perspectives here.
Yeah, it's not just an execution problem. Couple things. The first, I think in many situations, now some retailers really have got this figured out, but a lot of them don't. Some of them are measuring in stock. Okay. And I just told you I worked with Procter & Gamble and Walmart. We were measuring our in stock at Walmart and we were pushing high 90s%, which felt pretty good. When we started to actually do store audits, we found out that we were low 90s, like way low 90s of actual on-shelf availability. So there was anywhere between a 2 to 10% gap between in-stock and on-shelf availability. And again, the customer only cares about on-shelf availability, not in-stock. So the first thing is, how do you measure it? All right. Making sure that the retailer and the supplier know it's an important thing, putting a goal of what their expectation is, and then being able to measure and track it. Because you know what? You cannot improve what you cannot measure, right? So if you're driving your car and you take a piece of cardboard and cover up all your gauges and instruments, you have no idea how fast you're going. You have no idea if you're going to run out of gas. You're just hoping and praying you make it to the next stop. That's not a good way to drive, right? We all agree with that? Well, why is it that retailers run their business in terms of on-shelf availability the same way? Because they can't measure that. And because they can't measure it because there's not an easy way to measure on-shelf availability. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. Algorithms, computer vision, shelf scanning robots, RFID, fixed cameras, online shopping data. There's all kinds of different ways to measure it. The problem is people haven't made the investment to say it's important enough and put that infrastructure in place to be able to measure it. And once they've done that, they haven't said what's good enough. And many suppliers will go, well, 100% on-shelf availability is what I expect. And then I say, well, then go home, because you never are going to get 100%.
Yeah.
Let's set a goal that's achievable. You can say 99.5 if you want to, but saying 100, it's never going to happen. That one time if something's not on the shelf and you'll be disappointed. So the first thing is, if it's important, you'll track it, you'll analyze it, you'll have a target, and you'll measure against the target. If you're not meeting target, you implement things to do to get it to the right level. That's the first thing. The second thing is, what are the causes? And I can write a whole book on this, but I can give you three. Number one, store execution, which is the first thing you said. It's in the building, it's not on the shelf, right? It's in the building somewhere, but it's on the wrong location, so people can't buy it. Number two is supply chain. Well, what's that mean? That means there's none in the building. So there's none to be stocked. There may be none in the distribution center. There may be none in the manufacturing facility. There could be a supply chain problem. I don't know about you, but when I went to do grocery shopping a week ago, when we got 8 inches of snow, the store was wiped out. There was no product to be had. And the DCs couldn't get the product because there was 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. The tractor trailers couldn't run. That's not an issue of store execution. The shelves were bare, but unfortunately it was a supply chain problem. And then the third one, and this is the mystery one, is incorrect inventory levels. We call it ghost inventory or phantom inventory. That simply says, I think I have 10, I don't have any, and so therefore I don't have any, I don't sell any, and if I don't do that, I don't order any because I still think I have 10. So perpetual inventory, ghost inventory, phantom inventory, it's got about 27 different words, but it's basically the system thinks I got it and I don't. And that's a major issue that things like RFID really come into play to be able to fix that, because you can very quickly fix that. So I feel like I've talked too much, Jorge, but you get the gist. Number one, it's important. Number two, if it's important, you better measure it. You better set a target and you better work against that goal. And number three, you better come up with a way to both measure it and to fix it at the same time.
Mike, I'm going to go with harder questions. So why do you think some companies, and again, this could be the manufacturer, you could call it a brand, or even a retailer, they haven't invested, or they usually don't invest in this measuring on-shelf availability, and then, as you mentioned, starting to kind of add mitigation plans on the different areas, store execution, supply chain, and then obviously system problems, adjustments that you need to do for phantom inventory. Why it is it? Do they know it is important?
I'm going to answer a question with a question. What do you think for a top retailer, Walmart, Target, Sam's Club, Home Depot, Lowe's, what do you think is the number one priority of the CEO?
Well, they have tight margins.
What's their number one priority?
It should be getting products to the consumer, right? It should be. That's at least my take. But I'll pass it back to you, because I know retailers have tight margins and they want to have, again, a great P&L, and they have to be reporting quarterly. But from a priority, I don't know. I'll pass it to you.
I think it's number one, shareholder value. Because at the end of the day, their boss, if I'm the CEO of Walmart, and by the way, today is a really remarkable day, because today is Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart's last day as CEO, and he has done such an incredible job with that company. Little kudo tap to him. He's just a great guy too.
Kudos.
But their number one job is to make the shareholders invest in their company. And the way you do that is by delivering a return to the shareholders. And the way you do that is to promise to Wall Street what you'll do and then delivering on that promise. Okay? So that's big picture. That's what you're there for. Now, how you get shareholders to invest and profits, et cetera, you got to deliver something of value that somebody will buy. Okay? So Walmart's in case was saving you people money so they can live better. It's all about pricing and giving the lowest possible price, et cetera. But if you give me the lowest possible price and half the time you don't have the stuff, I'm going to go out there dissatisfied and I'm going to take my money somewhere else and my sales are not going to grow. Matter of fact, they're going to go down. Well, that is in fact why retailers should care about this. So if their sales have continually gone up and they don't measure on-shelf availability, well, good for you. I don't know how you did it, but congratulations. But eventually people will get tired of things that are not there when they're supposed to, and they'll bring out their cell phone and they won't know it over time, but suddenly their business will start to be taking steps down. And then they realize we better do some consumer feedback, and we get the consumer feedback. Yeah, you never have stuff in stock. I'm tired of going in there every single day and not being able to find ways. Well, how do we measure that? And then they get really, really excited about it. So the really, really good retailers know this. And again, I worked with Walmart. I think the world of them. And so they know that. They have a way of measuring their on-shelf availability. But I think there's other retailers who don't have a clue, absolutely have no clue at all. And unfortunately, you don't want to wait till it's a fire drill before you do something about it, right? You just don't. I mean, if you look at the history of so you're old enough and young enough to know, have you ever heard of a company called Sears?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of a company called Kmart?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of a company called Woolworth?
Yes, because they're in Australia.
Australia.
But I know that I'm deep in the retail world.
How about, well, I bet you don't know this one. Ever heard of Kresge?
No.
Okay. These are retailers where the top retailers at the top of the pyramid, the top of the top, the best of the best. Now, they all have one thing in common, which is they're basically not around anymore. Okay? So once you make it to the top, if you slip into number 2, it's really slippery slope to go number 3, number 4, number 5, and in 20 years, you're not even around and relevant. So at the end of the day, go back to the Sam Walton quote. A customer can fire me every single day. And if you are not measuring what's important to the customer, good merchandise, good pricing, clean bathrooms, on-shelf availability, fast checkouts, all those things that are important, they will go spend their money somewhere else. So if you're not looking at on-shelf availability, you should be, because the reality is you're probably going to disappoint customers and they're going to go find it somewhere else.
Hold on. No, thank you for that. Thank you for that reflection. What about from a manufacturer's consumer brand's point of view? I have came to realize, Mike, there's obviously, as large organizations, at least with the large manufacturers and brands, there's a lot of silos between sales, category management, marketing, supply chain. There's nobody owning on-shelf availability. So do you have any take or points there?
It sort of models what we just talked about with retailers. Number one, it's important. Is it important or not? And I can't tell you the supplier that I dealt with, but there was a supplier that I dealt with about 4 years ago, and they wanted me to know, hey, we just want to understand of what we're doing, and you've been in the supplier community and the retailer community. And so I started looking around at what they were doing, and some of the stuff was really good, et cetera. But one of the things they didn't focus on is on-shelf availability. And I asked them the question, what is your on-shelf availability? Oh, our in-stock is 98%. I said, that's not what I asked you. So I asked the question, well, we have no idea. So I said, let's go measure that. Their on-shelf availability was 91%. And they were like, that's pretty good, isn't it? I go, no. Because your competitors is about 98%. And so, long story short, We put in a methodology to calculate on-shelf availability. We pointed out alerts. Fortunately, they had a retail coverage team so they could get some alerts too. In about a year, they went from 92% on-shelf availability to 98%. Still not perfect, but 98. Big 6-point jump, right? They came back to me and said, guess what? The increase in sales from going from 92 to 98 was bigger than any new item initiative or brand initiative we've ever done. Just getting it on the shelf. We spend millions of dollars on marketing stuff, and if we can get 2% sales increase where we feel really good, we got a 6% sales increase because it's on the shelf day out. That's where we win. If it's not there, people will not buy it. So I tell you that for, number one, if you're a supplier, the first question is, what is my on-shelf availability? If the answer is, I don't know, that's a problem because it's a blind spot for you. The second question is, well, we better figure it out. If we're not meeting expectations, what is your expectation? 100%? No, nobody can expect 100%. That's not a realistic goal. But what is your target? Okay, 99%. Well, great. Well, you're at 90. How are you going to fill the gap? It's like any other business problem. How are you going to fill the gap and fix that gap so you're back at 98? And what they see is tremendous results. The reason most suppliers don't do it, they don't see it as a priority, number one. They look at in-stock, which everybody looks at in-stock, even though they know it's wrong. And I think the biggest problem in the supplier community is if everybody owns it, Jorge, nobody owns it.
Oh, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. Like, who owns on-shelf availability?
That's the account executive's job. Okay, that's customer service. Okay, that's warehouse distribution. Okay, that's that's our operations team that's out there working with the stores. Okay, no, it's the people who are pulling data and analyzing data. Okay, so if everybody owns it, that means nobody owns it. And from my perspective, one of the moves, and again, I can't tell you what company, they had the people in supply chain owning on-shelf availability. The problem with that is they were rewarded and recognized for making sure the DC had product. They were not given any of the capability to make sure it was on the shelf or measure it. So their line of action stopped once the trucks got loaded, and they were, quote, responsible for on-shelf availability. No, I don't really, honestly, I don't care who owns it. I think some suppliers are getting to a point where I need to assign on-shelf availability to a group of people in my company, and they own it end to end. They own it from the time it leaves a plant all the way until it's on the shelf. I own the entire thing, and if anything is broken, we don't give it's just fault, their fault, et cetera. I own figuring out how to get those things fixed. Those are the companies that have figured it out. The big ones, the Procter & Gamble's, the Kimberly-Clark's, the Johnson & Johnson's, let's be honest, they're on top of it. They know that stuff. They know what it make a difference is. How do we get the rest of them to recognize that that's how they're winning? I don't know, other than we do podcasts like this to hopefully point out that that's a fact and a reality.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's the single biggest problem that we are seeing with some of our CPG suppliers. Nobody owns it. Commercial says supply chain owns it. Supply chain says commercial. And I agree with you, right? Whoever owns it, there's obviously points of views. We do believe supply chain should own it, but they should own it from the shelf back to the pantry or the manufacturing facility. So I'm glad you're sharing that. I know we.
By the way, let me do one more ad for you.
Please.
If you have a chance to have this discussion with suppliers, I would not start out with a PowerPoint presentation. I would say, let's go spend an hour in the store and look at how your products look to your customers. And we're going to see a bunch of stuff that we don't like to see. We're going to see plugs. We're going to see out of stocks. We're going to see incorrect pricing. We're going to see missing labels. We're going to see all of that stuff that doesn't reflect good on me as a brand. But the reality is that is the reality. At the store level, it probably doesn't get set the way you want it to. And stuff is not on the shelf, even though it should be on the shelf. But sometimes it's not on the shelf because somebody forgot to put the label on. So if the label's missing, guess what? The product's missing. But compare what you'd like it to look like versus what it actually looks like. The delta is some group that owns on-shelf availability, and that's what they own. They own making what is proposed at the home office look like what is happening in most of the stores.
Another key point, and again, we don't have to stand here, but the cost, we want to make sure that the cost of fixing on-shelf availability is obviously lower than the business benefit that you mentioned and kind of the sales lift that we're seeing because of on-shelf availability. So any recommendations to the supplier community and even retailers on that and how to think through that? You're muted, Mike.
I have a stat that I've used before. I'll show it again. This is at the macro level, but I think it helps to point the picture. This is the cost of on-shelf availability for retail, and that means suppliers and retailers. Retailers are missing out $1 trillion in sales because they don't have what the customers want to buy. And this is from IHL. Amazon Prime members facing empty shelves are 73% more likely to take out their phones and buy what they want online. And the last one, which absolutely blows me away, 24% of Amazon's revenue is because customers tried to buy it in store first. So from my perspective, the first thing you do is say, that's big macro picture, but what does that mean for supplier A or supplier B or supplier C? Let's get it down to what are your sales and what is your on-shelf availability? And if we were able to get the on-shelf availability up to an acceptable level, whatever that number happens to be, what kind of increase in sales would you deliver and what would that mean to your company? So, because these big macro numbers, people kind of gloss over, but go down to the store level. If I got 50 SKUs and 22 of them are on shelf availability out, notice I didn't say out of stock. But the bottom line is that's going to be a problem. You're going to disappoint customers and you're not going to sell stuff. And that's just the honest gosh reality.